right. Oh, shit. And 3, 2, 1. Hello, Michael.
Are we live?
We're live.
Uh,
How are you, my friend?
I'm very well. May I start?
Yeah, shit. Let's get into it.
So first of all, I want to thank you for hosting me.
Oh, cool. You're hosting me.
Yeah, which is amazing. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little nervous.
Hey, that's fine.
We had some trepidation before.
Yeah.
You know, and we were talking about before the show, like conversation was flowing so naturally.
Yeah, of course, as it always does.
We were so worried that, you know, under the microphones and being on the moment, if it'd be so natural.
Right. I'm not worried.
So, let me start about how I feel.
Okay.
I feel that human beings have a
Wait, hold on. Sorry. Should we start on who you are first? And how
Oh,
we know
yeah.
each other?
My name is Michael Avellar. Really, I'm nobody special.
That's not true.
No, I mean that in the Zen image.
Yeah.
Nobody special. Right. So Eddie, I personally feel that the human condition is a problem of just identifying with our thinking mind.
Okay. Keep talking. I'm just going to adjust this.
And our thinking mind is sort of this voice in our...
Keep going. You're good. Just ignore me.
The human condition is that we sort of identify with just a voice in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And the voice in our head is generally a very critical one.
Yep.
And it's rooted in conditioning, and it's temporal, it's reactive pattern. My understanding is that there's a deeper sense of being, which is sort of a space away from the thinking. Now, I'm not a very religious person in the traditional sense of the word, but I do believe that the Eastern philosophies are very interesting to me because they ask nothing of you.
Right.
They're
And these
not-
are philosophies that are thousands of years old.
More than thousands of years.
Yeah.
Thousands of years old. And the beautiful thing is they ask nothing of you. There's, I'm good.
You good? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're not. Okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. They ask nothing of you. So there's no sort of attending to a commandment from a higher power, you know.
Yep.
And it's all based on a philosophy of thinking that all life is an illusion.
Like
It's all-
the Matrix almost?
Well, yeah, it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion around you.
Okay.
Right. And the idea of a Buddha is, the word means somebody who woke up from the dream. And I think it's interesting, I was talking to you earlier, is that the idea of a Buddha has existed in basic complex Hinduism for
Before Buddha was Buddha.
thousands of years. And interestingly enough, Buddhas rank higher than gods.
That's insane.
So the Buddha who...
Explain that. Why do Buddhas rank higher than the gods that they supposedly serve?
Well, it's my understanding is that they're sort of the idea of the Buddhistava, which is sort of like you understand the awakening, and you're still willing to sacrifice. You're not just going to live in the realm of being a god, of an enlightened being, right? You're going to actually use your wisdom to sort of raise the consciousness of I guess, you know, all things. And I think we've been trying to do conversations for a while. I feel like, right?
Yeah.
And I recently gave you the Tao Te Ching.
You did, yeah.
And to me, that's a very brilliant place to start from, because you think about what the Tao is. The Tao is, right, is and always will be.
Right.
There's just the pervasive energy in life that is all things.
Right. So for people that might not know what the Tao is, and it's spelled Tao, right? That's basically the idea of like whatever you identify as God. It's like that idea of like that higher spiritual.
Well, interestingly enough,
Or some people would call it God, maybe.
Right. Well, yes. No, it's true, and not to sound silly or anything, but basically the first rule of the Tao is just to give it a name. You've already destroyed it. And think that's what we've done with God, right?
Right.
We there's the truth, You know, I mean, you can study the teachings of Jesus, and you can study the teachings of Buddha right down the line,
Very similar.
down to the apostles and the temptations. There's a prevailing truth, you know, and I think I lost my train of thought.
We were on the Tao. That's
Well,
what
yeah.
I was
So the Tao is sort of like it's pervasive. To give it a name sort of destroys it, and that's what we do. That's what we do based on just our everyday. Like so, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion is that the average person is so identified with their thinking mind, conditioning.
Yeah,
It is
these
Buddha,
like subcategories that they put themselves
Buddha
into.
says all suffering comes from the clinging of mind. Like we cling to a separate identity. You know, some of the stuff I was reading, it's like people who are dying, like they can't even, you know, use the bathroom by themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And like all your power structures start to fall.
Yeah.
And then like a little slit opens in the veil, and you start to see the deeper play of life. I think the problem is the oversimplification in one reality over another. Like on one plane of reality, it's just simple life unfolding. One event happening after another. No more meaning than that. And then on the next plane of reality, there's goal, intention, and motive. And many people, we play with this motive. And some people take it very seriously. But maybe it doesn't have the seriousness.
Is that on the sense of the idea of like breaking that 3D realm, going into the 4D, the 5D?
Well, how do you mean that?
So, all right. So, like you said, there's another level, whereas like the motives and the goals and all that stuff, right? And then when you start to master that stuff, or you start to break through those things, and we're like, goals are basically something. So when you set a goal, right, you're not the person you are today that can achieve that goal. That's why it's a goal.
That's right.
Right. So it's about getting to become that person, right? So when that becomes like something that you can just do every day, it's like as soon as I put my mind to it, it manifests itself. It's that, from what I've read in my spiritual journey, it's like that breaking into the fourth dimension, and then the fifth dimension is above that. You know, there's a sense of like there's unlimited dimensions beyond our human grasp, even, and stuff like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the most important thing though is the power of the moment, and that sounds like a cliche saying.
Yeah,
it's the power of the moment.
Yeah,
be here now. Like,
yeah,
la
exactly.
da da.
Yeah.
But there's actually ancient wisdom truth in that. To be present is to be awakened from your thinking. The thinking is always of what happened yesterday. Because let me tell you something, not anybody going anywhere. Because it's only happening right now.
Yeah, right.
Right? And so if you're going to be sad and soured over what happened to you in your life, if you argue with the reality, you're going to suffer.
Right. And you're living in the past if you can't let go of that.
Exactly. And
you never grow.
It's like I could ask you this. Are you your thinking?
You're not. Ask me that again.
Let me ask you this, okay? Are you your thinking? Now, I beg to question. I want to follow up that question. Your thinking changes.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So are you your emotions? Well, your emotions are a physical reaction to your thinking.
Right.
Like when I was, this might be a little, I can't believe I'm revealing this, but like when I was 14 years old and like I was in love with this, we'll call her, I'm not going to name her name.
Yeah.
We'll call her Sarah Ellen. Right?
Okay.
And when we broke up, I was, you know, when it ended, I was like, this is the most devastating thing in the world. I will never love again. Yeah. And my whole world was just flooded with just, I couldn't see anything without seeing it through that lens.
Yeah.
You know? But then as time goes on, it's like I've had so many Sarah Ellens since then. You know, the Sarah Ellen is metaphorical for any changing feeling of emotion. When you're so identified with the stream of thinking, it's like almost everything becomes a means to an end. Like if I was to spill this beautiful sage ashtray.
Do you want to light that?
No. I could, I could be like, oh God damn it, I spilled the tray, or I could pick up the tray and then, maybe enjoy the cleaning, the feeling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like, it's what you make of it.
In a funny way, honestly, Eddie, and I'll give you the floor. in a funny way, I feel like when you give it all up, you gain it all.
Yeah, and I've had those experiences lately. I have. One of them being letting go of an ex recently, where it's just like I listened to oh my god, what's his name? Joe. One of these motivational speakers, but this guy, actually, you would love him if you already don't know who he is. He's all into like you can heal the body through your mind type of things, and like he like healed a spine injury he had through his own mind. You know,
I'm not familiar with him, but that sounds amazing.
right.
You know?
And he said something that stuck to me, and it was like you know, when you hold on to bad memories and you have that emotional reaction to it, you're still living in the past.
Yeah.
You're not living in the now. You're not living in the future.
Right.
You're living in the past. And until you can train your mind to start looking at those bad memories as learning lessons, you'll never live in the present. And it just like clicked. And then one day I'm just like after work at park next to my house, listening to music, and it just a deep breath, and it was like,
So you became
gone.
present.
Yeah, I'm like gone. Nothing that happened during those years matters right now, because what
Yes.
happened is why I'm here today.
So, oh my God, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so that's basically, I think, all the teachings, you know, that, and at least in my limited,
You still good?
yeah,
Okay.
in my modest studying, that's what it teaches, that you're awakened from your thinking, the waking of the idea of who you think you are, because you're much more than that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's so true.
And you said that all those moments don't matter, because they really don't. Like here's the thing: to be awakened from your thinking. My understanding is that you actually have to understand what that means. Is you awaken from your thinking. It's not a religious belief. It's an experience. It's like when you learn to read, and you're like, oh, look at all these strange symbols, and all of a sudden you begin to read. It's like a natural evolution. It's a natural evolution. And you awaken from your thinking, so you still have the thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still have all that negative stuff that comes into your mind. Like, it's not like it just all of a sudden you're happy all the time.
Right.
You have them, but you're aware of the space behind them. Like, you're awakened from them. So you have the thoughts. It's the difference between being like, I'm miserable,
Right,
versus there's misery.
right.
When you identify with the miserable, I am miserable, and the other, there's misery.
Yeah, it's when you really start to be able to feel that emotion and then make it like a U-turn.
Yeah.
And instead of like affecting your day, bringing your mood down or anything like that, again, for me, it's just take another deep breath and just like realize there's a reason why that happened. Another example happened to me the other day. I went to go for a walk. Sometimes first thing in the morning, put on a podcast, go for a walk, smoke a blunt, just enjoy nature and get a little exercise in, right? I walk outside and I'm like, where the fuck's my car? Where the fuck's my roommate's car? Where the fuck is anyone's car? Turns out...
Where are you? What would happen to you?
Turns out in the city of Medford, they street sweep the side streets twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And that happened to be the fucking fall day that nobody fucking knows about, because they only put it to the social media, like, who the fuck follows the city you live in, like, dweeb. And they put it like on those flashing signs near the rotaries and shit. So that's the only way that they tell you. There's no street signs, because according to the city, during snowstorms in the winter, they fly off and neighbors complain about the litter. Okay, use stronger fucking bolts. I don't know.
Wait, so were you lost?
No, I was outside my apartment. Mentally, I was lost for a second. Like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. So my car had been towed. And so I walked the 20 minutes there, and I still listened to that podcast, and I still smoked that blunt. And the whole way there, I was like, listen, it's fucking 11 in the morning. You're going to have to spend this $200 to get your fucking car out. There's no way around it. Like, it is what it is. You got the entire rest of the fucking day to make up for it. Like, there's no way to get this down.
Well,
and before, that would have ruined my day.
Yeah,
That would have
well,
absolutely ruined
that's
my day.
awakened thinking,
Yeah.
right? You know, you could have identified with, oh, the misery. It's like
Right.
the Buddhist expression of like,
I'm gonna be up for another 15 hours. Why is this like hour and a half and $200 gonna ruin my day?
well, it's like the Buddhist expression is like you step in a puddle, like, oh, you're a Buddhist, so everything's wonderful. You're
Right,
just
right,
living
right.
in a puddle.
Mhm.
No, you still step out of the puddle,
Yeah.
but you don't identify with being in the puddle. Like, oh my God. I mean, how often are we looking, what's the meaning of this?
Right.
How important is this? My needs aren't being met, right?
Yeah. Right.
But does that really have any grand importance?
No, not in the long.
No, it really doesn't.
That's that. I heard this in another podcast, and I forget who said it. That's like the difference between pleasure and joy. Pleasure is that moment.
Yeah.
I want to feel good for that moment. You know,
Yeah,
like my
yeah, of
needs aren't
course.
being
Yeah,
met.
yeah, right,
But
yeah.
joy is something that like it's not as strong as pleasure,
Yeah.
but it lasts longer.
Oh, but it's deeper. It's more
It's
enriching.
deeper. It's deeper. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the pleasure of like me giving my niece a birthday present and she fucking loving it, right? The joy is the thought of she's gonna be playing with that for the next year until I give her something else,
See, that's
You know what I
actually
mean?
beautiful.
right? And I just thought of that on the fly.
Well, no, that's beautiful because that's the idea. Is I think that like part of awakening is when you step away, like even though it's all heavy and serious, it doesn't have the same solidity you once thought it had.
Mm-hmm.
So in India, they call it Leela the play.
Leela the play.
The play of forms. Like your
Okay.
thoughts are a thought form. Like, you know, like and the idea of awakening is to be awakened from your thinking. Like the mind has a purpose. I forget who says the mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. You know.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You know, I mean, it has its purpose. Like being here today, and we had to arrange this
Yeah.
sort of meeting. But this identification with our thinking, which is reactive and contemporary, is what destroys us. It's like a prison we create upon ourselves. And the thing is, you can't free yourself from prison unless you know you live in one.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's again to bring it up. I could have brought it up a couple times, but it sounds like the fucking Matrix movie.
Yeah.
Like you can't realize that you are living in the Matrix until you realize that you're living in the Matrix. You can't break out of it until you realize it.
And that's the beautiful thing about the Tao Te Ching that you read, because I think that it's so great to have these conversations masked in many different types of clothing, right?
Yeah.
But I think when you read the Tao, it's pretty on point in its understanding. Like the Tao could be consciousness or God. It is and always it will always exist. You know, and the part you play, as far as the way you view your own separateness from that, is very minor. Has very little to do with the real interplay of consciousness.
Yeah.
And what makes people suffer, is this incessant clinging. Nirvana actually literally means to blow out.
To blow out.
To blow out. So like a person who has reached nirvana is like a blown out person. Like, and it comes back to the idea of the in-breath, right?
Yeah.
You breathe in and then you breathe out. So to breathe out is to be in the state of nirvana. To just be caught on the in-breath is to hold onto yourself so tightly that you asphyxiate yourself.
Okay. All right. I get it.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's where the struggle is. So if and we can go into God and whatever, you know,
Whatever that is.
and how you define that for yourself.
Right.
But I think there's you know, things of consciousness. Like the Tao tells you that, like it is the river. It's like your consciousness is your Tao, your the godlike nature within you is like an ocean, and the waves in the ocean is the thinking, right? It thinks it has an identity separate of itself,
Right.
but then it just crashes back down into the ocean. But the problem with human beings is they just identify with the waves, right?
The up and
And-
downs.
Yes, exactly. The very temporary conditioned response of the moment, and that translates into all kinds of sort of unproductive behaviors for human beings, I think.
Yeah.
Because when you're so over-identified with your thinking, then you're like always living somebody else's story. And it's hard to think independently for yourself. I think.
Yeah, I definitely, and especially when like you get caught, like, cause like what you just said a few minutes ago, like I'm miserable, or identifying that there is misery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very easy, which it, it's understood why so many people fall into these holes. It's very easy to feel miserable.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so much easier to feel bad
Yes.
than it is to feel good. Feeling good is a lot of work. You know what I mean? And I've been there. I was there during the fucking coronavirus shit. I was there last fucking like September to November. Like the last few years of my life, like since the knee surgery, has been like up and down, waves. And only now I really feel like I'm finally surfing those waves.
So, if I may interject,
Yeah, absolutely.
So you feel like for you to be happy, it's a forced thing. It's
I
easier.
I did before.
It's
yeah.
You know.
Now I actually enjoy the work.
Because some people do definitely identify with their misery. Some people
Yeah.
are like, "Oh, this is just the Avellar luck."
Right.
You know, it
It's
happens to me, and I am.
It's like for me that it goes hand in hand. Like I hate that expression, like, well, this is my third, or this is your 30s, like that over the hill feeling when you're 30, like, oh, I'm like hanging inside on a Friday night. Oh, you know, you're in your 30s now. It's like, stop. You're already dying. By sitting on the couch and just like watching TV on a Friday night and saying, well, it's because I'm 32, you're already dying. Instead of understanding that you've only maybe lived a third of your life.
Well, you have to.
So you're gonna die for the next 60 years?
Well, that's a social institution. That's the thing.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
So I think a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with here, the clinging stuff, is social institutions. Like I was talking to my roommate earlier that like pain is a social institution. Like when there's a kid that falls down on the ground, the kid falls down, but all the parents run around the kid and they're like, "Oh my God, the poor thing, it's dying."
Yeah,
you know. And the kid's like, "I was fine," but then just sees all the concern and starts crying. You know, that becomes an institution. Like when you're a kid and you.
It's kind of like, not to interrupt you, but it's kind of like. If you break your arm or you break your leg and you haven't seen it yet, you don't feel it. Yeah. And then someone goes, "Oh my God, your fucking ankle," and you look down and it's like, boom, there it is. Like, there's the pain.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things to contend with. The social institutions, these things are, you know, if you could even just look at them as a matter of demographics, they change. You know?
Totally, absolutely.
And thinking is something that if you just dwell in, it's like you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go to Florida and live on a beach house, you know, and that, you know, it forces you to be in the moment, and you do, but inevitably, if you don't truly understand the awakened nature of your thinking, you're gonna just want to change the furniture in Miami.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's gonna get old, and you're gonna have the same old problems, and the same old contentions.
It's like when people move to try to escape their problems.
Yeah,
your problems just they're your problems. They're not. Doesn't matter if you move from fucking Boston to Florida. Like, if you didn't solve them in Boston, they're still gonna be there in Florida.
Absolutely.
You know, like it's.
And I think the conversation is like, what creates those problems? You know, that might sound like a very contentious question to say I'm going to answer. And I'm not going to, but I can tell you, based on my thinking and the reading I've done, and not only that, my own personal experience, I mean that genuinely, that the problem is in the way that we sort of project ourselves away. We play this funny game of hide and seek with ourselves. It's always there. Like we're always dealing with all these things, but there's always this like part behind us that's like there, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we are. Like I think Buddha says, you're not who you think you are. You're much more than that.
Yeah.
And I am compelled in this argument, in this feeling that if you identify just with this stream of thinking, just with this voice in your head, this critical thing that's reactive, it comes from your parents, it's ghosts of what you're going to be in the future. If that's all you're identifying with, that's not where it's at. So if you step outside the stream of thinking, that's where I think awakening becomes. And then suddenly the world becomes bigger to you. Like when you look at something, literally, you can see it more defined
Yeah.
and deeply. Because think about this. Imagine going into a moment.
You can see it in a fourth dimension.
You're coming into the moment without all this sticky baggage
Yeah.
of who I'm supposed to be and what I think I am, and what a freeing thing. What a lovely thing not to take on the identity of just your contemplative reactive thinking.
Right. That's you. You made me remember a quote which I've probably fucking have repeated a dozen times in the last month and a half since I heard it. It's that voice in your head, that thought. I gotta say it slow so I don't fuck it up. I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am.
Well, that's actually rather brilliant,
right? I heard that and I was like, wait, I gotta listen to that again. And like,
well, see, that's actually a rather brilliant thing, because the problem with this sort of clinging to our thinking is that we can't actually see people. We can't actually truly see individuals, because on a true plane of existence, I mean, we're the same thing, but in different packaging.
Yes.
And all the packaging is the individual differences.
We're all the same stream of consciousness having different experiences.
Exactly. And if you're just
David Icke.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so to be able to
Sorry, I just moved the rug and everything with it.
When you separate, I think part of awakening is that you don't identify with I lost it again. You were moving the table and stuff, and I was preaching platitudes.
I fucked that one up.
Hey, listen, I want to take a moment here to say that everything I'm saying here is definitely not original, and I often quote people that I don't think we have the time for me to cite every single quote. I feel like I just take up a lot of readings, and so I'm probably spitting out a lot of stuff that if somebody was really pulling it apart, they'd be like, "Oh, Ram Dass said that."
Yeah, probably, dude.
He definitely did.
Somebody would be able to. I fucking can't. But no, but it's funny because something you said earlier, you said like your experience or your knowledge on this is very modest. And I'm like thinking in my head, yeah, to you motherfucker, because you've had that that awakening experience and whatnot.
Yeah.
Where in the reality is like, no, it's not modest to everyday people. Like a shit ton of this, like the stuff that you could talk about would turn the normal person off because they can't comprehend anything past getting up. I was
going to say you humble me, but then you're right about that.
Getting up in the morning,
most people
taking a shower, going to work, coming home, eating dinner, going to bed. Like so many people can't break through those like indoctrinated habits and stuff.
Of course, yeah. Well, the beautiful thing is that it's within anybody. You don't have to, Buddhism has a lot of like sitting meditation. You have to meditate, live in an ashram for 7 years, and then finally you can attain enlightenment. And then you have something like Zen Buddhism, which talks about satori, which is like instant flashes of inspiration.
Okay. Wait, can you get into that a little more? Instant flashes of inspiration?
Well,
what is it called again?
So satori, I believe,
is
I think it's Japanese. It means like instant awakening.
Okay.
So you have Buddhism, and then when it moved to China and Japan, I'm loosely feel I am accurate here. It became Zen Buddhism, and Zen Buddhism is very different. Zen Buddhism says that at any moment, no matter what's happening around you, you can instantly awaken. I'm a believer in that. I think that it takes just a little bit of. I'll give you a second. A little bit of assessing of you start to have your thoughts come into your head.
Is that like the aha moment? Or are you saying like it's multiple times it happens, these Zen awakenings?
Well,
these flashes of awakening.
Well, I think
or inspiration.
I think the awakening is a slit opening in the veil.
Okay.
And it can happen briefly.
Yep.
Like sometimes when it's like, you're seeing a sunset with the right person, right?
Yeah.
And you have this moment where you're not thinking anymore, you're feeling deeply. That's satori.
okay, I feel like I've had these experiences before, and I feel like, again, I'm fucking crazy.
I disagree.
But I feel like in those experiences, there has been like a flash of light,
Mm-hmm.
and there is that like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is more than the everyday type of
Right.
experience.
So then I ask you this. So how do you examine what that is? So when you experience that, how would you say that you're feeling within that?
Fuck. I mean, this diving this deep is new to me. I try to take it all in, and like try to have conscious thoughts and don't get too caught up in the moment type of thing, because reality is still there.
That's that's faithful.
I don't want to get lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I try to say, I mean, with everything, I try to stay centered with it, and like kind of take it as maybe another lesson or another path or sign or direction. I've tried to also stop over analyzing things because I get lost in my thoughts. And then I'm just creating a reality that doesn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about
that's another quote that I heard recently is that like we live in two realities, the real reality and the one that you create in your head.
Well, yeah, your life is doing better than you are.
Wow, that's a good one. I want to put that on a T-shirt. Your life is doing better than you are. That's so good.
It's true. I mean, it always comes back to this problem that like you're like it's always this clinging to the idea that this is happening. It shouldn't be happening to anybody else. It's like a separate identity. You separate yourself from the totality of the whole, as opposed to stepping back from the forms. Like forms of life are like this table is a form. Your thought thinking is a form. And you can identify with the forms, the material, or you can identify with the deepest sense of being. And for me, that's where it's at.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things, and it's funny. It's just over glasses of tequila. You know what I mean? For those who don't know, Mike is a regular at the Avenue, and we eye-opening things like just unbelievable.
I think that I think there's consciousness finds consciousness.
Absolutely,
I think you're drawn together. Like I think people, Ram Dass said this beautiful thing I thought was interesting. I think it was him, and he said that you have one responsibility as a human being. Your responsibility is to create an environment that allows people to grow and flourish and then come up from water if they want to, kind of environment. And if they're not at that point in their personal evolution, you leave them alone. It's not that you let them out of your heart, you leave them alone.
Yeah.
But to understand that you are your own environment is something that you're not going to find through the stream of your thinking,
Yeah, absolutely. Like along the way, you need sometimes somebody to point you in the right direction, and you definitely did that with me. And
you overflatter me for sure.
No, it's the truth, dude. I don't have to overflatter you. It's the truth. But the book, man, yeah. And it's funny because when I started reading the book, it was like right at the beginning of lockdown. And then like I was fucking, in a hole or whatever, and I stopped reading it. I just had no fucking desire to read it. And then once I started, my evolution of more positivity, doing the right things in the morning, not getting distracted by this, started to manifest what I want in life. All of a sudden I wanted to read again. And I went right back to that book. I have plenty of other books to read, but like, I was like, no, I got to get through this because where I am right now, this book is going to help me guide.
And what did it teach you?
A lot of the things that like I kind of already knew, but it's crazy, man. I can like, I'll doubt myself on something that I know is the right move or the right path or whatever. But it doesn't click with me until somebody else fucking says it to me. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I fucking knew that, but like for some reason, for years.
Yeah.
It's always been like,
Because you think, I mean, it seems like being clingy to your thinking.
yeah,
Kind of this expectation. You're living out of a place that's talking about, nobody lives in the future.
right,
There's only right now,
right,
right. And that's not to like, disregard planning. Like a healthy planning is a good thing.
right.
But when you're constantly identified, I mean, with future-oriented conditioning.
Yeah, like I have to be married by this age. I
Yeah.
have to have a house by this age. Yeah, I was conditioned that same way for a long time. And then one day it was just like, that's not for me. You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. You never know what's going to be good or bad for you. There's this Chinese story, may I?
Yeah, absolutely,
Alright,
dude.
So
Fuck yeah.
there's this Chinese story that I always loved, and there was this farmer, and his horse ran away,
Okay.
and all the neighbors came to him and said, "Oh my God, you lost your horse! Like we're so sorry for you, right? That's so terrible." And he said, "Maybe." Then 2 days later, his horse came back, and it had with it 7 wild horses.
Huh.
And all the farmers ran around and said, "Oh my God, what great fortune! Your horse brought back 7 wild horses. How good for you." And he said, "Maybe." And then a couple of weeks later, his son, I guess, got on one of the wild horses and was trying to tame it or whatever they call it in that culture, and fell and broke his leg.
Huh.
And so all the farmers came around and said, "Oh my God, what a terrible misfortune.
Yeah.
What a horrible thing." And he said, "Maybe." And then like 2 weeks later, the conscript for the army came in. And they're like, "We're going to march down and we're going to war with whatever,
Yeah.
And he had a broken leg. And because he had a broken leg, he wasn't able to go into the army.
Huh.
And everybody ran around him and said, "What a beautiful thing." And the farmer said, "Maybe."
That's, yeah, man. It's crazy. Like, it's like, what I was saying to you earlier, like, even it doesn't matter anymore, but like the bad shit that happened in the past.
Maybe I'll try your
Yeah.
method. I'll see what the kids are all raving about.
Even the bad things that happened in the past, it's the reason why you're here today. It's the reason why you're in this moment right now. It's just building blocks and steps.
Right.
Yeah, man, I don't want to live in the past anymore.
But I think the understanding is that the building, like, it's so easy to say that I am identification because of my past experiences, but you're really not. You're really not.
Right.
There's something so much more than that.
Hmm.
And that's the game. Like, even people, like, it's this funny game of hide and seek.
Huh.
That we're constantly playing with ourselves. I'm good.
Okay.
And for me, that seems to be something very fundamental. Like, I mean, what a beautiful thing to know that you're something bigger than who you think you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Suddenly,
Seriously, yeah.
no, you have to understand what that does. Like, when you free yourself from your thinking, suddenly you look around you, and the world becomes so more defined. You're not seeing things through such
guest on the podcast.
such an identification. That's Fuzz, by the way. He's a very handsome man.
Just a black cat walking by the podcast. That's okay.
Oh gosh, Fuzz, made me lose myself. Well, I guess it has something to do with identity.
Yeah.
Who we really think we are.
Right.
It's funny that we cling to the sense that what's happening in our minds, it's a means to an end. It goes on and on and on. Everything's an end, a means to an end, rather than an end in and of itself. If you could stop and have an end in and of itself, then suddenly you come back into the moment. This is where I was going to go with it. You come back into the moment without all this clinging baggage of this constant thought in your mind, this reactive thought, this temporal thought.
Mm-hmm.
When you're free from that, then that's when inspiration comes in. So, like, inspiration means to be, like, in spirit.
Oh shit!
You know, right?
Wow, wow, that's so fucking simple,
right?
Wow.
You know,
If I don't get anything else out of this podcast, that is gonna stick.
and that doesn't come through the conscious mind. You know,
Mm.
I think even Einstein says something to the effect that I never came through any of my theories through the conscious mind. Even
No
in,
shit.
in acting and when it comes to the arts, what they tell you is they say, don't get in your head. Like, don't play for an audience. The second,
They say the same
There's a
thing
great-
in wrestling.
there's a great quote, maybe this translates in wrestling. There's a great quote in acting that says, acting's the easiest thing in the world. Just don't get caught doing it.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, yeah, because in wrestling you have to be your character. You know what I mean? If you get caught like not being your character, then you just prove that it's fucking fake. So yeah, that translates to me. I mean, wrestling's acting. I
Yeah,
mean,
oh,
you know,
absolutely.
I'm fucking breaking my back and getting concussions, but it's still
Yeah,
acting.
yeah. You're like, how dare you live in that slivering? You didn't do nothing. You didn't work for a living. No, that's beautiful.
Fuck.
I just,
Let me ask you something.
of course, please.
What's your thoughts on astrology?
So, I don't want to be contentious because I feel I don't know. I guess the jury's still out with me.
Okay.
I don't know that we're so defined by
Okay.
astrological sign. Like you fit into these like 8 paradigms. I know there's a lot more to it than that. It's interesting to me. I do think that like if you, from my understandings of like reading like Hinduism, like I feel like if you can pull far away enough from the moment, you can predict how things happen in time and space. So I do think there's something to be said for the understanding of astrology, or rather, there is a very prevalent moving force that is more in control of our behaviors than we think we are, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting, but I think that it comes back to the Tao because that's the Tao. The Tao is pervasive within everything. It's about letting go. Like you become part of the Tao. So that's like submitting to an astrological sign. I think maybe in some ways that gives somebody who can't even think about how close that truth is to them, that like looking at the stars, maybe I can find how I'm unique and connected to a totality of the whole. Right.
Yeah.
And people leap for that. But the fact, the beautiful stuff about this is, Eddie, is that there's nothing to learn. There's no place to go. It's already there, right? It's how you've forgotten it along the way.
Yeah, it's true. And that reminds me of the book that I told you that you got to read. I've suggested it to a couple friends actually. It's called I Am, and it's written by this girl Erin and her boyfriend. And Erin was on like a spiritual journey, trying to figure it out or whatever. And then one day, she figured it out. And what she figured out was that like God is inside of us all.
Mm-hmm.
And she felt like God was speaking to her, but it was like the voice inside her. She knew it was the voice inside her. So she ends up having like this conversation with her boyfriend, like, "Hey, I feel like God is speaking to me, but it's inside me." And you know, he's skeptical at first or whatever. And so he decided, like, he goes like, "Can I have a conversation with this inner God?" And she's like, "Yeah." So they decide to like record, like I don't know how, I'm only on chapter 3, which is day 3, but they decide to record conversations of the boyfriend speaking to this God inside her, which identifies as I am. And it says, or you might call me God, but I am. I am everything. I am all of you.
Yeah.
You're just having a different experience of I am.
You know, it's funny. Alan Watts says this beautiful thing. He says that like if aliens came to the earth, right?
Yeah.
And they saw a bunch of apple trees, they'd look at it and be like, "Oh, okay, it's appling," right?
Appling?
But then they'd pull away, they're like, "It's just rocks and apple trees appling."
Yeah.
And then they see people, and they're like, "Oh, wait a second, it's just peopling." You know, you are a natural movement. Like what pervades you is so much bigger than who you think you are. And it just, life is sort of this constant separation. Like your social environment tries to separate you. It tries to conform you. Now, I mean, listen, I'm not saying like, I think that you can find a better brethren of human being if you're not such flag waving and so conjoining to a certain idea, when you're actually seeing the unity, the actual similarities. You know, it's a
Right.
beautiful thing. It's like, you know, you could look at somebody and you could just, you know, we're so taught to see the differences: rich, black, poor, white, right?
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately what you understand is that what I was saying earlier is it's the same experience, but in a different package.
Right.
You know?
Different consciousnesses having the same stream of consciousness, having different experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what divides that, and this is also David Icke, is when we put ourselves in these subcategories like Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, black, white, you know, and like that divides us further and further and further.
I mean, I want to be careful here because I don't want to get too much into identity politics.
No, we don't have to. But it's an idea.
But I agree with you completely. I mean, any great civil leader will tell you that anything that creates categories in which divides us, divide and conquer. I mean, it's just an obvious.
That's the idea, and that's what David Icke stresses, is that whole divide and conquer mentality.
Yeah. But it's I guess what I want to talk about is like, well, what do you do in a world of that? Is
some people just trying to survive?
Well, yeah, no, I know.
You know.
But I think that ultimately, no matter what happens around you, what changes today and tomorrow, you're still going to have to confront yourself. What it is deep within inside yourself.
Right.
And I think sooner or later, people realize that their thinking isn't where it's at, because it changes. It's so fickle.
Yeah. Changes
right?
every day.
And it usually takes people, they're dying. Like, some people don't even, they're
Or
so
near-death
identified with their
experience.
thinking, and that is it.
Yeah.
There's no deeper, inner, richer life.
Yeah.
And that's
It's like
sad.
It's like those people that have those near-death experience, and then they come back and like everything has changed.
Well, I think the good thing is you don't need the diagnosis.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Right.
have to be
You don't have
stricken
to
with
see
the
God,
cancer to understand some. It's like the difference between beliefs and knowings. Like, I believe in something, and then you like know something.
Yeah.
Like this is not religion. It's not like sign up for this and you get like, it's inner, deep, rich experience. It's an experience thing.
Right.
Like once you feel it, like it's like I was saying, it's like
different.
learning to read. Like
Yeah.
then you read and you can't see it. You know, it doesn't mean that you're the best reader in the world.
Right. Right.
You know, but
Yeah.
but you can read now.
But it's evolution. It is, like you said earlier with the reading. It's evolution.
Yeah.
You know, getting to that next level, or back to that idea of the 4D, 5D. So I didn't get to ask you, what's your sign?
I'm an Aries. Blood Aries. Is that a thing?
I don't know. maybe you were born on the blood moon.
You saw my black cat.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's very Aries of you, actually. If you didn't know. So then, what? I'm going to give you the God question.
Please do.
What's the meaning of life?
Well, that's a loaded question. But I think that we have taken an incarnation here to delve into a sense of a separate identity, but to somehow come to the understanding is that we're deeper than what we thought we were. So I don't know exactly how to find the meaning of life. I mean, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah. But that's like the question.
But
right?
it is that it is. I believe. I know it's an understanding that you are not this poor little person with all these, and your problems are heavy and serious to you. There's no doubt about it. But it's the way you understand your problems. You know,
Yeah,
it's the way you see you go back in and you get the space from your thinking, and suddenly you do it with more in a play and a delight. Sure, it's all very heavy and serious, but Herman Hesse says in Journey to the East, he says, it's just a dance. It's a beautiful dance. It's like it's like a game.
Yeah.
And I said earlier that in India they call it Leela, the play.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's the play of forms. So you become the person that sort of plays around the forms, and then suddenly, in a way, when you give it all up, you gain it all, kind of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's that whole enlightenment. It's like once you're able to let go, everything is.
But I think that some people think enlightenment, when they think that it's I'm happy all the time. Suddenly it's such joy.
Right.
Everything's so beautiful. It's all sunshines and roses. No,
Right.
it's not about happiness. It's about freedom. You're free. You're free from the conditioned, the reactive.
Yeah.
And you're imbued with the sense of the Tao. That you're bigger than your sense of separateness.
Fuck. It's so deep, dude. I honestly can't wait to re-listen to this.
Yeah,
I usually don't re-listen to shit that I put up. Just put it up there and see what happens. But there's gonna be so much in this that I'm gonna have to re-listen to.
God, I hope it does well under the light of a new day.
This is great, dude. This is great. Fuck. Oh shit! I had another question for you, son of a bitch.
Ask me any, please. I need questions at this point.
I can't.
Dry of material.
Oh, you dry of material?
No, definitely not.
Fuck. Where else could we go? We can go so many places. God, I had other.
But we could keep it to this vein of life, like how it affects people from why do people suffer in sorrow? Like how are they alone feeling sorrow for themselves? I don't know. Maybe you can take it in that direction.
Oh, I know what I know. Okay, I know what. Do you think that there was? Do you think there was another species of human beings before this go around?
You know what? I'm definitely open to that.
Because here's the thing. I don't think fucking the pyramids in Egypt were built by fucking slaves.
I would definitely be open to that idea.
And there's cities made out of stone in South America that the edges of these stones, if you run your finger on, you'd fucking slice your finger open. They're cut so precise. We still don't have the technology to cut these stones.
Oh, I agree with you. My roommate and I watch Ancient Aliens all the time, don't we, Daniel? He's off.
Thank you.
No, I mean, I definitely that'd be, we actually, it's funny you should bring this up. My roommate and I were watching this documentary, The Fifth Encounters. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And I found it, based on the stuff we were talking about, to be very inspiring.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh my God, like, what a wonderful thing to connect with another being of this high intelligence. Because that would be another method of getting you off your puny thinking of the way you assess your miserable existence, right?
Exactly. the bigger picture of like your problems aren't like
that
important in the grand scheme of things.
For that, I'm chanting the aliens on, man, and I mean, I want them to come. That's what I'm saying.
Right? We agree, right? They're probably already here, right?
Yeah. Well, I hope they show themselves. Like, come out and be like, roll out. Well, you get rid of this cancer shit.
Well, that's the lizards running the world. How far deep do you want to get into conspiracies?
I don't know. It'd be out of my realm of thinking, I guess.
Not mine.
I mean, if you want to tell me, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Lay it on me.
I talk about it enough. I'm here for an enlightenment, not the bullshit in this fucking world.
Maybe the secret lies within there,
Maybe.
I don't know. Like
I'm gonna keep asking you if you believe in shit.
Okay.
All right. So you're open to the idea of previous human civilizations?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do you think that there's a possibility that there was like mystical creatures such as like giants and dragons?
Ooh, well, I think giants and dragons are two separate categories. Because giants are in the Bible. The Nephilim were like large, like, who's the one that with the slingshot?
David and Goliath.
I mean, you know. Dragons, on the other hand, I've seen Komodo dragons. Like, if I was like never saw a reptile before,
and those are supposedly a lot smaller than they used to be.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
So,
all right. So I ask you about the giants because, and it's funny that you brought up David and Goliath because that takes place in the supposed Middle East. which is supposedly where a lot of these giants lived.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a theory about a team of Marines that took down a giant in
I
Afghanistan.
heard about this.
You heard about
I did
that,
hear
right?
about this. Go on, though. You
And,
probably know
and
where
I have a couple Marine friends, and it's kind of like one of those stories that are like whispers about, like, well, you know, like kind of sworn to secrecy type of thing. We don't really know. And so there's also something called mud fossils that are supposedly like a lot of these like weirdly cut mountain structures or rock formations.
It's like the footprints of the fucking giants?
No, like the actual giants themselves.
Oh, okay.
And that they've been casted in mud from like maybe a meteor or something, like whatever. Like, remember the old man in the mountain in New Hampshire?
Yeah.
The face on the mountain? Like that. Some people think like that's an actual fucking giant's face.
Just preserved in stone?
Just preserved
like a
in
mummy
stone
kind
shit.
of thing?
Yeah, kind of like a mummified.
Oh, I think that's insane. I truly do. But that does not deny, I do not go on record denying the existence of giants. But it's just
Right.
that Afghan story about like that was like very interesting. I wish I knew more about that.
That's as much as I think the
You know?
information's
And
out
also
there.
Sasquatch stories and like
So-
I have a buddy. Do you know Charlie?
Yes,
I don't want to say
yes,
his name.
yes.
I don't want to say his name.
No,
but
he wants to be on the podcast, so it's fine. He wants to talk about
yeah.
Sasquatch
So
on
I
the
mean, and
podcast.
he like I love
He'll
the
talk about it for hours.
I love the man to death, but he's like passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like he
goes Sasquatch hunting down the street from where I live.
Does he really?
Yeah,
hunts for them.
he wants me to go on a blunt walk with him through the woods over by the Fells Way in Medford, and like he's like sent me pictures of like shit and
Has
like,
he really?
oh, look out for this, and like I'd go in that wood.
He's
I've been
very
going to those
serious
woods
about it.
forever. Like as a kid, and like one day I like came by something. It was like a fucking like a giant teepee made out of trees, like sticks and shit. And I took a picture of it and I sent to him. He's like, "Yep, that's a sign."
Really?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He's like,
I'm not so quick to like disbelieve him.
No, I mean, he tells me to keep looking up this guy on YouTube, these two guys on YouTube that like all their entire channel is about Sasquatch hunting and shit. But like, yeah, man, he's like fucked. Like they're fourth dimensional beings and they can like vibrate and go invisible and like.
Well, I think what disallows us from seeing these possibilities is because of our over asphyxiation on ourselves. You know what I mean? Like
Thinking we are at the
like
top of the
when
food
you
chain.
become back to the Tao again. When you become part of the flow of life.
Yeah.
Like it asks nothing.
Yeah.
It is and always will be. Like some people say of God.
Yeah.
You know? It just is. Like that's the flow of life, you know?
Yeah.
I just
And fuck. Wow. How do we
and I want to say, sorry, yeah, the Sasquatches.
Oh yeah. The Sasquatch,
I think that the open-mindedness. I think that like there's things out there that are paranormal. That there's probably a lot out there that doesn't happen, and people capitalize on things. But I think there's a fair amount that probably does, and I think that our conditioned state of mind is not to be open to that kind of thing. And I think part of when you awaken is that it's all part of the flow.
Yeah.
You know, there's no it's all open. It's all yes. And when you say that to things, then suddenly you start to you become more present in things, and they have a whole much stronger life. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to be able to see things beyond your own constant stream of negating, self-hating, anxiety-ridden, repetitive, reactive voice in your head.
Right. And and so many people suffer from that.
Yeah.
Like so many fucking people.
That's right.
Especially after this last fucking 6 months. Man.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay mentally strong.
It's
during
been a
that
challenge
shit.
for me, man.
Yeah,
Don't
it's been
get me
a challenge
wrong.
for
like-
everyone, man. There's been very few people that have completely capitalized on it, you know?
Yeah.
And might have been
Well,
designed
lucky
that
for
way,
them.
but-
Yeah, perhaps.
So, all right, you brought up Eastern culture earlier, or beliefs and stuff, and that's also why I brought up the dragon thing, because there's like ancient scriptures of dragons being like almost pets and being raised in China, and like the Chinese zodiac sign, all of the animals are real, and except the dragon that's on their calendar and whatnot, and again, like the mud fossil idea, like. There's a theory that people believe that Antarctica, if you look at it on Google Map, is just a fucking giant dead dragon, fucking fossilified.
I would definitely be open to the idea. I mean, it seems it's. I mean, I'd be open to it. Like, I wouldn't. Nature would not surprise me of anything.
Right.
You know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know a lot about.
And the reason why I think it's a
the-
possibility is because humans just happen to have a habit of killing off whatever threatens them.
Yeah.
So, I
That's
just
true.
see if the dragons got to be a problem at one point, it's just like, all right, wage war on the dragons. We got to kill them all.
Hey, here's a statistic for you.
Yeah.
Did you know the number one killer of what human beings is?
Themselves?
You're gonna say war,
No.
science,
No.
mosquitoes, man.
Mosquitoes?
Mosquitoes have killed like half the dead population.
Get the fuck out
I
of
swear
here.
to God.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
Mosquitoes.
they are the biggest threat to human nature. In a if you step back far,
Because they carry disease and shit like that?
yeah, they've killed more than half of all dead of human beings has come from mosquitoes.
I guess if you were allergic to them too.
Oh my God! Well,
You could never go out in the summer. You'd have
I
to
mean,
live in Antarctica.
fact check some of my statistics there, but I
I'm
guarantee
gonna
you,
look that up.
you would be
later.
very surprised that it
Mosquitoes.
is mosquitoes. Like one of the
I was gonna say stress.
maybe because of the mosquitoes.
Yeah,
Man. When they're all around you, like
Fuck, I'm gonna be stressed now. Jesus Christ. Thank God the fucking summer's over. Mosquitoes. I would have never fucking guessed that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Oh man. Wow. I am enlightened.
Eddie, I'm really glad that we're having this opportunity together.
Yeah, dude, this is awesome.
Because I'd
This
like
is
to take a
blast.
moment, like here we are, like
Yeah.
it's good to see you.
You too, man. It's
And
been a while.
And I thank Eddie for this because
Dude, I
you
want
made it
to
happen.
fucking talk to interesting people. You know what I mean? That's my goal with
Shucks.
this shit. That's my fucking goal with this, man.
Well, I feel like I'm here with the person who ascribes to those adjectives.
Well, thank you. You're gonna make me blush. 1 million people a year die from
1 million
mosquitoes?
people a year die from mosquitoes. That comes from our science desk.
That's insane.
Think about that.
That's like
I was right.
That's like 900,000 more than I would have thought.
Think about that next time you're alone in the wilderness.
Right? Fucking more people are gonna die from mosquitoes this year than coronavirus. Well, that's the real pandemic. Why aren't we fucking freaking out over mosquitoes? Shit, kill them all. Oh God, I just had another fucking question.
Oh,
in my
come
head.
on, give me the question.
Oh, my
I feel like I've like blabbed and jawed and chewed and hemmed.
No, dude, fucking keep going, man. Want to get into God?
Yeah.
We can get into anything.
Well, we can definitely get into God.
All right, let's do it. What's God? Who is God? Does
Well,
God
I would never presume to describe what that is. But I think that it is connected to consciousness, which is the Tao. You know?
Yeah.
It's a state of one event folding after the other. No more meaning than that. It is and always will be. I think I've said that probably like 5 times tonight.
Full circle, man. Just keep coming back to it.
And I think that's closest to what how God is described in like even Christianity, or it's sort of a. Well, let's talk about the East. Yeah, I don't know.
What?
I don't know. I don't want to like go too much into religions. I guess
What, you afraid of offending people?
Yeah, I don't want to offend anybody.
Fuck it. Anybody listening to this is either already offended or they want to hear this shit. You know, and I'm down to have the uncomfortable conversations.
Well, I don't think it's
know?
offensive. I just think that there's
No, people need to think.
like God doesn't have a dominion on any institution.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I think it seems ridiculous to me
yeah.
that like your God's better than my God.
You know, it's funny you said that
It's
because literally
Like it just seems so glaringly obvious. To me.
the podcast I just did with my friend Omar on Saturday night. He's from Morocco. He's born and raised Muslim. He left Islam. He didn't agree with it anymore. And he gave an example of like trying to have a conversation with his father, and his father like mentioned something about Islam, being Muslim or whatever. And Omar was like, "Oh yeah, I agree with that. That's a great idea, but like Jewish people and Christians also think the same thing. So like maybe a lot of these religions are like similar than we think." And his dad like kind of just like looked at him like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Because like it's like, no, this is the only way.
Yeah, well,
This is the
that's
way.
when you caught up in traditional social institution reactionary thinking.
Right.
I think Henry David Thoreau says that progress moves forward on the wheels of a hearse.
Progress moves forward on the wheels of a hearse.
Meaning that like people's old antiquated ideas, once they're dead and gone, that's how progress happens. Because it's not so caught up on the opinionated, stinging, focused understanding of what you think. Like it's people become racist. They become prejudiced. They're like throughout time, like they're flooded with fear, like internment camps and and people living
happening
in
right now in China.
It happens in the time, but there's the person living in it, and yeah.
Don't lose that thought. So the people die. The old ideas die away.
So basically, that Henry David Thoreau, I believe, who quoted it, says that progress moves forward on the wheels of a hearse. So it's like it's easier to get over the past conditioning of people's thinking once they're long and gone. But in the midst of that, it's like that's the pervasive attitude of the environment,
Yep.
So it's like this is the way it is, like But then the progression happens as that is sort of ripped away. So I think that's what he's saying when that progress moves forward on the wheels of a hearse.
Why do you think? And this is another quote. Why do you think, right? It's easier to fool somebody than convince them that they've been fooled. You could show somebody evidence of something, and just because they don't want to believe it's true, they won't.
That's an interesting question. Well, I think it's very easy to fool people because I think people by nature, they don't want to be guarded. They want to love. They want to, I mean, if you're a smooth talking person with a silver tongue, like you can get anyone to, you know what I mean? Like if you have bad intention. So it's easy to think to fool a person, but to convince a person that they've been fooled is more difficult.
Yeah.
Wait, say the question again?
It's easier to fool somebody than it is to convince somebody that they've been fooled. So that's obviously from conditioning. People fall for bullshit all the time.
Yeah.
And you can show them all the fucking evidence.
See, I think that people don't. I think when they're confronted with like you've been fooled, I think they're like, no, me.
Yeah, it's an ego thing.
I would never been. Yeah,
it's an ego thing.
I think it's easier to fool people than it is. Wow, that's interesting.
Right? It's a good one, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that statement. It's easier to fool people than it is
to convince them that they've been fooled.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I agree with that statement 100%. Now that I think about it,
that's
yes,
crazy,
100%.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
But I think that goes back to what you've been talking about is like that conditioning and like breaking through that conditioning. Why is it so hard to break through?
Well, because it becomes pervasive in your mind.
Like is that self-doubt, that inner voice saying,
it's
no,
reactive
because
when you're because you're just identifying with that. You're hearing nothing more than that contemporary reactionary temporal noise. It's difficult, I guess, because it's so pervasive. But it's not so difficult in the understanding that is if you could just step back a little bit and see it happening, just to barely note it. Okay, yeah, I'm a miserable person and my life is terrible. But to step a little bit away and be like, yeah, I'm noting myself feeling that I'm miserable and I'm nothing and my life is terrible.
Yep, I understand.
And I think that starts to expand the gap. Some ways to do it is techniques like yogic meditations. Meditations. If you think about what all these things do to you, is it's all processes. Whether you have a mantra or you're focusing on your breath, it is all about quieting your mind.
Which is a hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. Empty your mind.
Well,
I've started to dabble in the meditating. I'm much better at doing breathing techniques in the morning. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof,
No.
the Iceman? Yeah. Yeah. He's crazy. He like will hike mountains in just wearing shorts, like snow and stuff. He's like conditioned his body to like be able to like sit in an ice bath for hours. But he does these like breathing techniques, and he says like to do it like first thing in the morning or before you go to bed, and it like just allows the body to like really intake oxygen and start to like really do what it's meant to do. You know, like really fire up the brain, really fire up the muscles. Like, I mean, we're deprived of oxygen all fucking day long. You know what I mean? Like, already with the pollution and the bullshit in the air, we're deprived of it.
Yeah.
That's why if you like actually take a hit of oxygen, you get high.
Yeah.
Fucking Christ, God. Yes, Wim Hof. And I've become pretty good at it. I'm gonna want to keep.
Wait,
doing it
it's a technique of breathing meditation.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
it's 30 to 40 deep breaths, and then you let everything out, and you hold it as long as you can. So you do it sitting down or lying down, and then when you need to breathe, you breathe in and you hold it for 15 seconds, and then you do another round, and you do as many rounds as you feel like you need to do, and like by like round 2, you start getting the tingles in your fingertips and the bottom of your neck, and like you start to get like really into the way that your body works, and you're able to slow your heart down and shit. And like right now I can hold my breath for 2.5 minutes.
That's great.
With nothing in, and it's like it's a high. It really is a high. I can do it for 4 rounds. The 5th round gets kind of struggling, but
some beautiful stuff about some wonderful treasures about living in the moment is to actually feel your body, like to feel the energies of the body. Like if you close your eyes and you hold your hand out, and you're like, how do I know I have a hand that's being held out, right? And that you don't perceive with your eyes is the energy of the body, and your body likes that.
Yeah,
it likes to be recognized.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, it's like when you work out, or you eat right, and you're taking care of your body, you just feel better.
Yeah,
you just naturally feel better.
Well, it's like you've taken an incarnation, like you're riding a vehicle, right? Yep. And you could like not take it for an oil change every. Right. Which is a terrible thing for me to say because I haven't had health insurance in about 50 years.
Did you say 50?
Like 50 years, yeah.
50? How old are you?
Like 127.
I would believe
according to my doctor.
Oh,
man.
fuck.
I forgot what I was saying.
So, what kind of tools or practices can one...
Oh, you just brought me back to what I would...
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. No, so...
I wasn't sure how I was going to...
No, you did. You brought me back. So basically, there's like this technique you were talking about.
Yep.
There's all these techniques, yogic techniques and breathing techniques and meditation, and it takes many different paths. But what they all are trying to achieve is that you are away from your mind, your thinking mind.
Yep. Yeah.
That you still have the mind, right?
Right.
But you sort of watch it like imagine like if you're like on a lawn somewhere, and your consciousness is a clear sky, and the clouds are the thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And now if you follow that thought, you'll follow it to the next thought, into the next thought, into the next thought, and then you're no longer living. Right. You're in a prison. And you need to escape.
Yeah. So, for people, and I'm going to find my grinder, so I want you to keep talking.
Yeah.
But for people that want to escape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're in a hole, they're feeling fucking down, they know they don't want to. Could I borrow a joint paper? And by borrow, I mean use. And
from our science desk.
Oh, thank you. How can somebody that wants to start that path?
Okay, I know where you're going with
You know
this.
what I mean? What,
I know.
How do they pull themselves out of bed?
I know the.
You can go. You can answer that however you want.
I know the carrot that you're drawing in front of my face. So,
Maybe. Chinese farmer. Maybe.
I do believe that. Well, there's many ways you. You would just leave me on the mic by myself?
No, I can hear you.
No, I mean there's many ways that you could do this. You can extrapolate it from your studies. You know, you can read about it.
Yeah.
You can feel and experience it.
Yeah.
I do believe things like psychedelics, if used in the proper setting, I think could yield some benefit. I believe in the medicinal potential of that.
Ah, shit. That was my own bag.
But I don't think that there's there's nothing that is the answer. Like it is and always will be. So how you find yourself again?
Yep.
It's like people who read the Tao Te Ching all the time. And Alan Watts has this great thing, like don't mix the map up with the terrain.
Okay.
You know, you're just
okay. Wait, I kind of get it.